Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This meeting of online presenters has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmaster official speeches. If you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you may apply for membership after demonstrating your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of our club. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and role if you have one. Right-click and select Rename to do so. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting. Your video or audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. Also, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Please welcome our club president, DTM, Andriy Byrne.
Thank you very much, Carolina. And as Carolina said, when people are speaking, please be considerate and turn your mic off. If you look at the dashboard, you'll see that we have 2 DCP goals completed. We really should be further along than that, but just to make you aware, if you have not turned in your information to give you credit, please let us know so that we can update you on your work. It's always important to not be in a situation where you're not getting credit. No free speeches, and that's important as well. I hope that everyone has had a good beginning of September. For some people, that means your kids are going back to school or your summer vacation is now completed. But we are now in serious mode. Serious mode meaning we're going to be focused in on those things that will help each of you along your journey and help the club demonstrate what each of you are doing collectively by moving in advance. You'll all be getting a message about what we're doing with respect to our club officer plans and the summation of our meetings. We will keep you informed of all those activities. David has a whole bunch of educational things in the planning as well. And for those that missed his workshop, Joni put a copy of the link that gets you to watch it on your own, the session on the background for David's program as it impacts our meetings. At this point, I'll turn it over to our Toastmaster of the Day. I want to recognize everybody's achievement. I think if you give me a moment, Carolina, we have a returning member. I'd like to make her official and give her a hello and accept her into the club, unless there is an objection doing that. Do I hear any objections on, of course, I'm talking about Sunny Fridge. All right. Hearing no objections. Hooray and congratulations, Sunny. You are now reinstated as an important member of our club. We appreciate that.
Woohoo!
Appreciate you being back in. Now, with that interference, I return it back to our Toastmaster of the Day. And my sheet says that that is Kim Learning, Toastmaster of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, Andy Byrne, my fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guests. I'd like to welcome everyone to Online Presenters. I'm Kim Leeming, and it's my honor tonight to be Toastmaster of the Day. The theme of the day is keep them interested. The word of the day is long-winded, something I've been accused of many, many times in the past. So it's an adjective meaning speaking or writing at length and in a very tedious way. So to keep the theme of keep them interested, I started thinking how to do that. And that led me to think about talking about something that's like super interesting. So the most interesting thing to me, or one of the most, is the Aurora Borealis. And that is why I chose the background that I did. And it's also commonly known as the polar lights. It's a natural light display in the Earth's sky, and it's predominantly seen in high latitude regions. They are the result of disturbances in the magnetosphere caused by the solar wind. So I hope I've managed to keep you interested with these facts, while at the same time not being too long-winded. Let's get on to the meeting. Tonight's meeting is a speak-a-thon. As such, this meeting will have two sections: the prepared speeches and the evaluations. With speak-a-thons, we have 6 prepared speeches. Each speaker will be presenting a speech for a particular project within their Toastmaster pathway. We're happy to say that we have a full lineup tonight of 6 speakers. The second part of the meeting will be the evaluations. Each of the 6 speakers will receive an evaluation, and this is a great opportunity for all of us to learn from the valuable and actionable feedback each speaker receives. Now, I'd like to introduce some assistants for tonight's meeting. The timer for tonight is Sarah Idahan. Sarah, could you please tell us what your role entails for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster Kim. Tonight I will be the timer. I'll be timing each one of those speeches to make sure that we're not long-winded as we speak tonight. Each speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. At the 5 mark, we will have a green light. At the 6-minute mark, we have a yellow light, and at the 7-minute mark, we'll have a red light. As well as the evaluations, 2 to 3 minutes. At the 2-minute, we will have a green light. At the 2.5-minute, a yellow light, and at the 3-minute, a red light. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sarah. The vote counter for tonight is Carolina Ramirez. Carolina, could you please tell us what your role is for tonight?
Of course, Kim, my role is to count the votes. I'll put a link on the chat, and you will vote for your favorite speaker tonight or evaluator, and at the end of the meeting, I will give you my report. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you, Carolina. Now we're on to the tip of the day. We will start the meeting off with that, and tonight's tip of the day is being presented by Toru, and I'm so sorry, Maruyama. And
right.
Thank you. Take it away, Toru.
Thank you very much. Queen Elizabeth II of Great Britain died on September 8 at the age of 96. When I heard about her demise, some thoughts on leadership popped up in my head. She was the ruling monarch for more than 70 years, the longest serving queen in the history of the nation. She ascended to the throne at the age of 25. The reason was that when her father, King George VI, died, she was first in line to the throne. Her throne was assured by blood. No one could challenge. She could have lived a lazy and easy, comfortable life, but she didn't. She met with many presidents, prime ministers, royals, numerous celebrities, and top leaders of prominent organizations of the world. During that time, she established a personal relationship with them and made them great fans of hers. She took advantage of her long throne to distinguish herself as well as to improve the status of her nation. And as she got older, she learned to acquire an aura of authority and command, and in that way, she exercised leadership silently and in a low-profile manner. Few British promoted their country as profoundly and efficiently as the Queen. She was the most competent diplomat, visiting 117 countries and shaking hands with thousands of people, during which she improved and maintained strength both physically and spiritually. She was always a larger than life presence on the world stage. When I was an editor of international news, of news agency, I called her, and my colleagues also called her, Teflon Queen. Now let me ask you, do you know the name of King of Spain, or the King of Norway, King of Belgium, or the Emperor of Japan? Anybody? Do you know any of these people's emperors and kings' name? Okay, can you come up with the name of the Queen of Denmark? How about it? Most probably, nobody knows because they are invisible in the major international news, I can understand. But I know them all because I Googled a few hours ago. Until then, I didn't know at all. For your reference, I tell you, King Felipe VI of Spain, King Harold V of Norway, King Philip of Belgium, Emperor Naruhito of Japan, and the Queen of Denmark is Margarete II. It's like a history quiz. Very hard to answer and hard to remember. But Queen Elizabeth II is an exception, and undoubtedly most well-known constitutional monarch in the world. Her life symbolizes the leadership of continuity in an era of disjunctions and breakups. As newly elected Prime Minister, Liz Truss said that Queen Elizabeth provided the nation with the stability and the strength that people needed. I'm sure history will record that her self-discipline and devotion saved the British monarchy and the land. That would be the proof of her great leadership. May she rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Toru. I am so sorry. I am having computer issues. We now move on to the main event for tonight, and that is the Speakathon with a full lineup of 6 speakers. Our first speaker for tonight is Rosena Duncanson. Her speech is titled, "If I Could Change the World." This is the first speech from Visionary Communication Level 5, demonstrating expertise and develop your vision. The purpose of this project is for Rosena to develop a detailed vision for her personal life, professional life, or an organization. She chose to focus on her personal life and to share some aspect of her vision. Please welcome Rosena Duncanson. If I Could Change the World.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster of the day. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was standing on the stage at the Division Table Talks contest, and they asked me, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And my response was almost immediate. If I had any superpower, it would be the power to bring about world peace. And not just any world peace, but a contagious world peace where whoever I got in touch with will have the same power and they have to spread it all around the world. Now, I had no idea they was going to bring this disease called COVID that would do the same thing, but that's not what I meant. It was a good power, a power that was going to ensure that the world was going to be a better place. Now, after I thought about my response, it may have been a little unrealistic to try to have a power that was world peace influencing. However, when I thought about this project, about my vision, I thought, what is it that I really want to do from a personal standpoint? And one of the things I try my very best to have is a growth mindset. I always want to learn more. I want to know more. I want to be around people that can give me more and inspire me to do more. But that's pretty selfish. All for me, all my knowledge and all my growth. And I said, I actually enjoy passing what I've learned on to somebody else, like mentoring and teaching and training. And so when I thought about my vision was more so to be not just someone that wanted to grow, but someone who took that growth to pass it on to somebody else. So my project allowed me to sit down and think about some goals that I can do to perhaps make this vision come true. So the first thing will be for the growth mindset is to keep learning, which is why I love Toastmasters and I love my organizations, because just a moment ago, I learned more about what I may not have known about Queen Elizabeth, right? And so being around people, I am destined to gain more information. The next thing about this program is mentorship. Every year, you can choose to have one, many, or just have someone say, can you help me with something? And you could choose to share your experiences with them. And believe it or not, I am on the journey for my distinguished Toastmaster. And I have a project to do for that. And I was told that I can do anything that can use multiple people to make my dream to become a distinguished Toastmaster come true. And so when I thought about my vision, it was not just for me, but it was for me to take what I learned into somebody else. Now, this is just speech number one, so I have a lot more time to sit down and truly iron out each of the steps, because a good vision is just what it is, a vision. But like any vision, it's a dream, and dreams cannot come true unless there's goals, there's identified tasks, and most importantly, a timeline. And so my hope is that my vision does not take 10 years to be completed. My hope is that within the next 6 weeks, I can start to check off the mark of some of the things that I have to do. And I'm asking you all at this moment to hold me accountable. You heard me say it. I want my distinguished Toastmaster designation. And so someone check with me in a few months and said, did you get it? Look for it after my name. The next thing is, you heard me tell you that I want to be able to share what I have to somebody else. And so ask me, Rosena, what have you done to share some knowledge you had with somebody else? And the last thing is, allow me to serve on the program, even as tip of the day, so that I can tell you what I've learned, and I can keep on learning to improve my skills as not just a Toastmaster, but a better professional. And so I encourage each and every one of you, you may not have the project, but take the time to think about your vision. Take the time to think about what is it that you really want to do. And it does not have to be personal. I chose personal because when you think about personal, it will impact what you do for work. It's going to impact what you do in your social environment. And so first things first is to start with you. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Rosena, and congratulations on your journey toward DTM. Your vision sounds like you're spot on. Our second speaker for tonight is DTM David Carr. His speech is titled Cease and Desist. This is from Presentation Mastery Level 3, Increasing Knowledge, Connect with Your Audience. Please welcome David Carr, Cease and Desist.
Ka-thunk. Do you know that moment where it occurs to you that you've just done something dumb and you can't take it back? Ka-thunk is the door of my beat up old family van slamming shut. I just parked on a lovely tree-lined street in Old Miami, about an hour from my house. And I glanced back, and there on the console of the van are my keys, which I had misplaced at some point while I was fumbling with my phone, getting out of the, I mean, thank God I hadn't forgotten something important like my phone. I'd been invited to a dinner party for tech influencers, which was kind of cool. Except now I'm thinking I'm going to have to call my wife to drive an hour and come rescue me. which would not be cool at all. Fortunately, I'm in AAA, which for those of you not familiar is an automobile association that does things like help people who have flat tires or help them break into their own cars. So I knew, because of other airheaded moments, that this service was available and that I could go off to the dinner party, and afterwards I could call AAA and they would break me into my car. And so I went off to the party and I was focusing really hard on not looking at my phone, not looking at the email that I had just seen pop up on my phone, because it was probably bad news. It was an email from Toastmasters, not you fine people, not my friends in Toastmasters, but Toastmasters, the distant and sometimes inscrutable bureaucracy, specifically from legal at toastmasters.org. Now, this was the follow-up message to a cease and desist letter I had received a couple of weeks before. And I should explain that this was not even my first cease and desist letters from Toastmasters International. I had run into some issues a couple of years ago with the Toastmos.org club website hosting service. In that case, I was able to plead my case, work through some friends, and we got it worked out. We changed some disclaimers on the website and I was able to go about my business. But in this case, I got an email, and part of the reason I didn't want to look at it on my phone is the lawyers can't just send you an email where they tell you what they want to tell you. They have to send you an email with a PDF attachment, which would be difficult to read on my phone. But I also just didn't want to know what it was going to say, because the first letter said, "It has come to our attention that you are involved in organizing an event called Virtual Toastmasters Conference," in quotation marks, "and you may not do this." They then proceeded to accuse me of various violations of rules, copyright, trademark, the prime directive. "You, Toastmaster Carr, are threatening the nonprofit status of Toastmasters International if you carry forward with this event. You may not do this because your event claims to be representing several different online Toastmasters clubs, and we have not approved that. In Toastmasters International, you can be a club, an area, a division, or a district. You can't be anything else. You can't just make up an organization." Now, mind you, this was the third year that we had run the virtual Toastmasters conference. And it occurred to me at some point while I was preparing this speech, this was an anniversary present of sorts, because that first letter arrived on March 7th. And our club had chartered in March 2017, had just celebrated its 5th anniversary, and had grown into a successful club. During the pandemic, our members were instrumental in helping lots of other Toastmasters in other clubs and other districts learn things about how to do online meetings effectively. So we thought we'd made our contribution. We came to the end of that 2020 year, that very tough year, and we said, we're going to have a celebration. We're going to get together with a bunch of other online clubs, and we're going to put together a big event, bigger than we could do by ourselves. So we invited in some great guest speakers, and we had the first VTM Con in December 2020. We had a second event in June 2021. We invited people from Toastmasters International Board to both of those events. They didn't come, but we did invite them. We had some dialogue with them. So we were hardly doing anything in secret. But this year, it was absolutely forbidden. They implied that I was trying to personally profit from the event, which was not true, although I was collecting money to cover expenses. And so the letter said, this is not negotiable. So of course I tried to negotiate. I tried to write back to them and say, yes, we've complied with everything you've said. We've added some disclaimers to the website. We tried to clarify things further. We can run it through online presenters. We can run it through their budget if that's the hang up. So we should be all right, correct? Well, I didn't know what they were going to say. And I refused to find out through that entire dinner party. I refused to find out through the entire time that I was pacing by the side of the road, waiting for AAA to come and help break me back into my car. I waited until the following morning to read it. And of course it said, nope, what you have done is not good enough. You may not call it a Toastmasters event. You may not use the name VTMCon or the VTMCon.com domain you have set up because we own the letters T and M. And the problem with that, the thing that annoys me about that is that they may well have had legitimate concerns about preserving their nonprofit status and all that stuff. But it could have been worked out if they had been willing to work with us. But they weren't willing to work with us. They were willing to shut us down, to slap us down. And there would have been no online clubs available to help out during the pandemic if you had waited for Toastmasters International to decide that it was a great idea for Toastmasters to be conducted online. It happened because of individual Toastmasters, individual club leaders who agitated for it to be allowed back when they were saying that a speech given online wasn't a real speech and a meeting conducted online wasn't a real meeting. The innovation comes from the club level, and I hope that Toastmasters International will recognize that someday. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Wow, kaplunk. As Blondini, I know all too well the feeling of doing something dumb and realizing it. But boy, did that sound like a nightmare for something you just tried to do as a very wonderful thing. The third speaker for tonight is Joni-Renee Laidlaw. Her speech is titled To Be or Not to Be. She will be speaking from Presentation Mastery Level 2, Learning Your Style, Effective Body Language. Please welcome Joni Laidlaw. To be or not to be.
To be or not to be. Seated. That is the question. When giving a speech, we normally wonder, especially in the online sphere, we must sit down or we must stand up. Translated, because we are a worldwide and global audience, must I stand or must I be seated? To be or not to be, that is the ultimate question. I've pondered this topic quite a lot. Fortunately, I wasn't able or needed to wear pants for the past however long COVID took. Now I do, because on occasion, I find myself needing to stand before an audience. It helps us connect when we do. It helps us to have the grandiose experience of your entire body language. It helps when you're long-winded to be able to sit back down because I'm tired. But generally, the question is, when is it appropriate to sit? I would think, as long as you're framed correctly when giving a speech, so that your body language can be demonstrated to everyone. I mean, after all, you can see when I'm pondering or when I'm happy, right here, sitting once you're framed appropriately. But what if you're giving a PowerPoint presentation and you have to stand to do that? How awkward is it going to look for me to be like this, changing my slides and looking for the next thing that I'm supposed to do? The Hunchback of Notre Dame was not exactly what I was aiming for when I was having my Shakespearean moment. Just saying. When does it work to stand versus sit? I think the easiest way to surmise that is, what's your intention for your audience and your speech? What's your choice when connecting? Do you need to be rooted and grounded in your stance when you're demonstrating what you have to say to everyone? Would you like the opportunity to pace around to show that we're having a discussion, but there's movement involved? Well, if you don't really need all of that when communicating, the whole point of standing can become rather tedious. I mean, not everybody is lucky enough to be able to have a device that affords them the privilege to step further and further and further and further back away from the audience to demonstrate what they need to in terms of the grandiosity of movement. Some persons on occasion can only frame because they're so close to the computer that they only get the headshots, a part of them in. What do I suggest that we do when we get into those kinds of situations? Work on remembering that most of you is actually, well, below the screen. You actually have to make a concerted effort to raise your hands in order to demonstrate to everyone what you're doing. I usually go when it's body language. It helps to think about the message and to put in things that you have to think about that come along with gestures. I mean, after all, if you're going to smile, there's a gesture that goes along with that, which can prompt you to utilize your body language. But those would have to be focused if you don't have your entire frame to work with. What's the drawback of being standing? Stood, being stood, standing up. There you go, translated correctly. For me, I have a flapping problem. I get really, really excited and I start moving. It always has been that way. You think I talk fast now? You should have heard what I sounded like before. But the more nervous I get, it's the more excited I get, because I learned that nerves mean I find it important. And because of that, that energy just means this is important to you, Joni. Think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it. It's great. This is important. But that translates in the wings coming out and the flapping, because when that happens, standing is actually quite detrimental, because at least when I'm seated and I'm really hyper and agitated, my hands can be below the screen and no one will ever see them. Yes, I am just as happy. And yes, I am moving just as much. But the lack of hands keep them from over gesticulating unless I remember, lift them up into the frame. But when you are not seated and the nerves kick in, everybody gets to see the movement, and that can occasion be detrimental. It also is detrimental if you're reading your speech. You can't connect if you're reading. When I started my journey, I used to do that all the time. After all, I would forget what I have to say. Duh. And I didn't want to do that, so I made sure the notes were there. Standing, believe me, people know when you're reading, as opposed to if you're seated. To be or not to be, that is the question. My answer, it depends on whether or not you want to be long-winded, and if you have the stamina to remain standing. Back to you, our Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Joni. To be or not to be, I think the next meeting I will be standing. Our fourth speaker for tonight's Speakathon is DTM Graham Cairns. His speech is titled, How to Cruise for Free. Well, almost. Graham will be speaking from Team Collaboration Level 3, Increasing Knowledge, Researching and Presenting. Please welcome Graham Cairns, How to Cruise for Free. Almost.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, a quick show of hands here, if I may, and literally just physically raise a hand. Who here has been on a cruise? Who here wants to go on a cruise? Who here thinks the concept of going on a cruise is something they would rather have their toenails removed painfully? Good, I'm glad that we're not that audience, because I actually love cruising. I've been on multiple cruises. In fact, I'm heading off on a cruise in about 3 weeks, which will make it quite difficult for me to be an effective member of this club while I'm away, although I am working on getting a Zoom set up so that I can sit on the back of the ship and be a part of the meeting as we cruise. But the thing is, the cruise that I'm about to go on, I have to pay for. We're not paying much because I did get a really good deal, but we do have to pay for it. And it is in an internal cabin. And so it's not as good as we would normally like to cruise, but we're also paying less than we normally would. But sometimes I don't pay for the cruises at all. Well, that's not quite true. We do have to pay a small fee for an agency to place us on board a cruise, but effectively we are cruising for free. Who here would like to know how to go cruising for free? I'm seeing a few hands going up here. All right, let me explain what you need to do. Those of you who've been on a cruise, you would know that particularly on sea days, there is only so much shuffleboard that you can play. There is only so much bingo that you can get involved in. There is only so much art gallery stuff and free champagne that you can drink without going, I cannot do this anymore. Well, there are things called guest lecturers or enrichment lecturers who get up and speak for perhaps an hour on a whole variety of subjects on sea days. Those guest lecturers don't get paid to lecture on board a cruise ship, but by the same token, they don't pay either. I, for example, am currently negotiating a cruise to follow the one that we're about to go on. This will be on the Quantum of the Seas, one of those huge ships. And it's a 10-day cruise out of my home port of Brisbane around the South Pacific. And if it comes off, and it probably will, I will have to give 5 short lectures during that 10 days. But other than those 5 one-hour lectures, my wife and I will just be passengers. We will have a cabin, the same as any other passenger. We will eat in the restaurants, the same as any other passenger. We will go off on shore days, the same as any other passenger. I will have to work for 5 hours, but for the rest of the 10-day cruise, my wife and I travel effectively for free. There is an agency fee that I have to pay to get us on board. That will be roughly $400 US. So for the 2 of us, for 10 days, I'm talking roughly $400 or about $20 a day each. Now, if you can't eat $20 on a cruise ship, then you're not trying. So what sort of lectures do I have to give? In this particular case, it's cruising around the South Pacific, and the cruise line that I'm going to be with likes destination style lectures. So I will be talking about the ports that we're going to visit, a bit of history about the interaction between the Melanesians, the Micronesians, the Polynesians, and the Europeans, and how they have crossed paths and when it's worked and when it hasn't. We'll talk about a history of the islands that we're going to, the ancient history, the history of the French who went through the area, the history of the Europeans and of World War II and the impact that that had on, for example, Noumea, which we'll be going to. I'll also give lectures on famous travelers that you think you know, but you actually don't. Christopher Columbus, for example, went to his deathbed genuinely believing that he had found a way through to the Indies, and nobody would believe him because they were trying to prevent the second coming of Christ. I'm serious. He was quite mad as a cut snake, but a fascinating dude regardless. So I give lectures on famous travelers, on the places that we're going to. I sometimes give lectures on how you can write a media release for your Toastmasters club or other group or small business. I have to get approval for the lectures that I'm going to give a general outline of what it is, but then the choice is up to me. I have to choose subjects that the audience would be interested in. And if I can do that, and I'm quite confident that I can, because any Toastmaster can do that. We do this regularly. We present subjects that we don't know a lot about, but we want people to know more about. Then I can get on board these cruises effectively for free. Now, in Australia, the agency that I use is called Event Speakers. And as I say, it costs me $700 US for a 10-day cruise or a little less for a 7-day cruise. Now, there are other agencies, and I will be putting the list of those in the chat in just a moment. So if you're interested, then you can go to these websites, see what it is that they are looking for a enrichment speaker, a guest speaker, a destination speaker. If you have an interest in military history, if you have an interest in astronomy, if you have an interest in barbershop quartets, if you have an interest in whatever you have an interest in, and you can make that entertaining for a crowd of people on board a cruise ship who would otherwise be bored and playing bingo or going to the casino, then you too can travel for free, or at least almost free. So as I say, I'll put that list into the chat. Feel free, if you want to apply to event speakers in Australia. If you think that you're going to be in our neck of the woods and would like to cruise, then use my name, because if they hire you, then I get a little kickback as well, which is a lovely thing. This happens with all of these. Oh, be quiet. I should have turned the phone off, shouldn't I? I know better than that. But that is how you travel for free, or at least almost for free, on a cruise ship. Adam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Graham. There was a chat in the chat during your speech from Tricia Smith, and she said she'd like to go on your cruise to hear your presentation. I couldn't agree more. This sounds fascinating. Our fifth speaker for tonight is Maggie Liu. The title of her speech is Career Consultant Expert Interview. She'll be speaking from Team Collaboration Level 3, Increasing Knowledge, Prepare for an Interview. Please welcome Maggie Liu, Career Consultant Expert Interview.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the day. Today, this is like interview, so I would like to invite David as my interviewer. And I'm trying to apply this role as, are you available, David?
I am.
Okay, it's
Did
just
you send
trying
me a
to.
note about this in advance that I missed? I may have, but.
No worries. So the role I'm trying to apply in this Toastmaster thing is career consultant in, let's call University ABC. If we can begin today, thank you, David.
All right, Maggie, thanks for coming in today. I've looked at your resume, and it's very impressive. I was trying to understand, is there a little bit of a gap here between college and when you got that first job?
No, David. So the role I'm trying to apply is career consultant. So currently I have a job. I have a full-time job. I'm a business analyst. I'm working for a power factory. So we're producing the electricity for the whole Queensland and New South Wales and Victoria residents. But I always have this passion, just like Rosena mentioned, I always have this passion to pass something I have learned. And sometimes when I recall my experience, so when I started in university, my major was tourism and hospitality management. And when I start working, actually working in the multiple roles like tour agent and tour guide, and then I was working in a 5-star hotel. And eventually I came to Australia, and then I studied accounting and professional finance. And then I was working in the mining industry, working for oil and gas, all these professionals, auditors with the Big Four, and I became a professional accountant. And then after like another 10 or 12 years, I want to have another career and change. So now I'm working in the IT department. I'm working as a business analyst. I'm trying to talk with different business stakeholders and then put them in a flow chart and then help our IT department to understand what's the key issues, what's the software need to solve in the problems. So, and also I kind of have volunteered in the local school. I work as a treasurer in the local primary school, just to trying to sort up their books, make sure the books all tidy up. And then I now want to change something new. So yeah, you're right. That's something I haven't tried before. Now I want to try this role as career consultant, because
that's quite a variety of experience. How do you think you would translate that experience of having moved between so many different careers? How would that help you in the role that you're applying for now?
Yeah, that's something I want to tell the young generations. I think words has changed. Not like my parents' generation, they work for the same company, same role until their whole career life for 25 or 30 years. But in my generation, people are changing roles. I know some people like study as a nurse and then work in the childcare, eventually become an engineer. I know so many people like a lawyer and become a craft person. So that's I want to tell the young generation now graduating from the university that you have to do your analysis. You have to do some research to find out who you are. What do you like? What's your passion? And then kind of find their strengths and then find the career path they can work on and do not waste up some of the time.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a strength, but you also have me wondering, you've moved from this to this to this. I mean, we're trying to hire somebody that we would like to be able to depend on for some period of time. How do I know that if we bring you into the organization that you're not going to decide in 6 months that you want to be a stand-up comic or something and move on from here?
Yeah, that's really possible. I mean, like even though I'm changing roles, I've been living in Brisbane for past 18 years. So that's one thing for sure. Just like Graham, I don't want to leave this fantastic city. I'll be here pretty much very long time. That's why I want to contribute my thing to the community and to the university to help the students understand their strengths and help them to find the dream career path. So I'm a very dedicated person. I have the passion to help people, to help the young people. So I can't really guarantee long term, but here I am. I'm ready to talk, listen to the young students, listen to their concern, and provide some of the guidance, give them some of my personal stories, and hopefully they'll be calm, they'll be ready, go into the really hot job markets right now, and then find out their dream job.
Would you, part of your story is about moving from between careers, between roles in different organizations. How do you think you would counsel one of our students to choose something that they are going to be able to stick with, at least for a while?
Yeah, I think
it won't be frustrated with, because I assume some of these things you probably moved on from them because you thought going in that it would be a good role for you, and then you became frustrated or annoyed at the type of work.
Not frustrated is not really the word. It's just you keep growing and then you move on. You go into the uncomfortable zone and you make yourself comfort and you kind of want to grow up. So if you look at my resume, you can tell the shortest working experience in one company is 6 months. The longest is 4 years. To be honest, in the future, in the gig economy, in the freelancer economy, I think that's a good lens. Well, the experience for me to tell the young graduations is find your passion, really learning. And of course, I know that some people work in the same industry, same company for 10 years, but they keep changing roles. So I don't think anyone could benefit from one single role, one single job description for more than 10 years. You have to grow, absorb all the knowledge and the skills and grow out of yourself. Thank you very much, David, for your time today.
Well, I'm very impressed, Maggie. I actually wish I'd spent more time studying your resume coming into this, but you've helped me understand you very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. I'd hire you. And thank you, David. As you all know, tonight we do not have table topics due to the speechathon. And I believe, David, that was a great impromptu speech to take over for all the table topics. So our sixth and last speaker of the night is Andriy Smolenko. His speech is titled Golden Gavel Award for Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine. He will be speaking from Innovative Planning, Level 4, Building Skilled Managed Projects Successfully, the second speech. Please welcome Andriy Smolenko, Golden Gavel Award for Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine.
Golden Gavel Awards, most prestigious, one of the most prestigious awards bestowed by Toastmasters International to the individuals who have achieved outstanding skills in leadership and communication. Of course, it's been going on for years, in fact, since 1959. And some of the prominent figures who received that prestigious awards, just this year, the lady named Shirley Davis, who created global workforce experts and leadership coach. She's executive coach, in fact, an author. So this year, maybe some of you met her personally at the convention. Also, one of the most famous people in the world, Dr. Stephen Covey. Yes, the famous author who wrote The 7 Habits of Most Successful People, highly recognized individual. And one of my favorites who received this award is Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, the author, and one of the most recognized coaches, life coaches and business coaches in the world. So all those people were outstanding in Toastmasters International view for their achievements for leadership and communication. Well, my fellow Toastmasters, my goal for the project of Innovative Speaking Level 4 was to help Toastmasters give an award to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine. And the biggest question is why? The thing is, I am Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine, in the capital, Kyiv, ages ago. Now I live in Manchester, UK, and I do a few things in here. However, what's happening in Ukraine is very, very close to my heart. My mom and dad, many relatives are still in Ukraine. And yes, it's the war conflict in a full scale. At the same time, in my view, President Zelenskyy is one of not many people that we could probably, many of us could say, that really deserve this award for communication, for leadership, and the spirit that he puts into his everyday role. Get up and go and communicate, save lives. Well, let's do just a quick vote. Let's see how many of us today, by raising your hand, would agree to give the award Golden Gavel to President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. I see quite a few people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 22 people who have a majority. So thank you. Well, it's a little positive step already on the way. This with positive step in my mind, I thought, right, what I need to successfully accomplish this project. First, of course, is a team. Number 2 is communication. And 3, energy. That's I have abundance of. My team consisted of 3 wise people: Andriy Byrne, DTM of our club, David Carr, and Carol Prahinsky. Carol gave a bit of advice and washed her hands. David Carr and Andriy Byrne, they stay with me throughout the process. We had chats and meetings, normally informals, and discussing what can be done about this project to move forward. Communication was quite important. We did have a chat during our online presenters meetings and just some informal discussions. And energy was in the air. It was my project and I was hoping that I could make it happen. Well, the lessons that I've learned. I haven't accomplished my project yet because I realized that it really takes time for us big projects at this, despite my excitement, despite one of the greatest teams that I have with me, I still need understanding and time. That the biggest problems that I come across is just no clarity. And I explain you what I mean by that. I think most of us are used to the nicely printed out guides, brilliant guides about Toastmasters, about anything, but not about the Golden Award nomination. So there is no guide that would tell you step by step what you need to do. And it's highly, apparently, political decision to make, because some clubs in Russia or China wouldn't agree, perhaps, with Volodymyr Zelenskyy being nominated for the Golden Gavel Award. And it's just not simple as that, just to approach on Toastmasters International with my idea. It requires a lot of back scratching. I'll get to that in a minute. So the lesson number 2 I learned is just, here we go. Lesson number 2 I learned is just keep swimming, keep swimming. I think some of you could recognize the movie Finding Nemo, when that fish was going, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep on going. And the lesson number 3 I've learned, it's not about the actual outcome, for me at least right now. It's about the journey. It's about the things that I learned on the way. And a little milestone, one of that little milestones, as today in our club, we nominated Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, for the most prestigious, at least one of them, Toastmaster International Awards. And to me, being an Ukrainian, being a patriot is an important step. I'm sure I will carry this little step, the little fire that you helped me to light up in my mind, in my team's minds, to the next step. One day that will happen. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you, Andriy, for a very thought-provoking speech about Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the Golden Gavel Award. Our timer for tonight is Sarah Idahen. Sarah, could you please give a timer's report for the 6 speeches? Sarah, you're muted. You're still muted.
She put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
Yes, I put it in the chat. And we had 2 speakers that did not meet the time limit.
Okay, thank you. If everyone could take a look at the chat and then please cast your vote for best speaker of the day, that would be great. Our next portion of the meeting is the evaluations. This is the educational part of the meeting. Our general evaluator for tonight is Tricia Smith. She will lead the evaluation portion of the meeting. Please welcome Tricia Smith.
Thank you. I'm going to describe my role as general evaluator. I've been looking at everything. I've probably been a little too busy doing that, but I've heard everybody's speeches. I've been looking at all the screens and the positions of everyone in the meeting. We have 21 people here participating in our meeting. Impressive. Yay, 2 screens. I'm going to introduce the evaluators for each speaker. I'll put them in the chat box at the end so you can vote and based on the timer, and ask for the timer's report when we are done with the evaluation. When we're done with the evaluations, I'm going to give just a general wrap up of just observations and comments that go along with the evaluators. So welcome to the evaluators. We have evaluator 1 ready to go. Evaluator 1 is Jim Barber. For speaker 1, Rosena Duncanson.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, my fellow Toastmasters, and of course, especially Toastmaster Rosena Duncanson. Rosena, I'll make this fast. This was a great presentation. I liked almost everything that you did. Let's make this appropriate. There we go. Okay, there we are. Let's start with your gestures. I loved your gestures. They were animated, they were visible. You got them up so that we could easily see them. They were congruent with your message. They didn't seem forced. Some people put gestures in as though it's part of the script, and you didn't do that. They were fluid, they were natural, they were appropriate. I liked your overall body language. It was great. I liked your background. Since we're on appearances here, your background is attractive. It's not distracting. Very good. I liked that. Sticking with appearance, let's go for you. You are dressed professionally, very attractive. Now, in online presenters, we oftentimes go for the casual look, and I'm doing that now. Nothing wrong with that, but it's refreshing to see somebody that dressed up for their presentation tonight. You did that. You look very professional. It paid off. It looks great. You smiled throughout your presentation. If you are enjoying yourself as you appeared to do, then we're going to enjoy listening to you. So again, that was effective as well. Let's talk about your vocals. Here almost everything worked. Your vocal variety, your diction, your use of vocabulary, everything worked. Almost. I'll get back to that in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about your call to action. This was a different call to action because it wasn't just at the end. It was towards the end, and it occupied a very large part of your speech. And you did something a little bit different than a lot of people. You asked the members to hold you accountable. And that is so powerful. It is a call to action. You're asking us to do something, but you're asking us to do something involving you, and that involves the audience. It deepens the rapport that you have with your audience, and that is so effective. One of the best call to actions that I have seen in a long time. Couple of suggestions, one of them minor and one of them a little bit less minor. A minor suggestion, time. You had plenty of time. You came in, I think, at 4:27, so you had the time to slow down a little bit. You spoke fast. I'm speaking fast now because I don't want the red light to come on, but you could have slowed down a little bit. Your presentation would have been a little bit more powerful. The main thing, though, is, let's see if I can bring it up here. You've got a distracting glare on your glasses, unfortunately, so you need to position your lighting a little bit different or ditch the glasses, one or the other. I think the glasses are fine, but you need to put the lighting somewhere else so that we can see you. But this was a great presentation, and I'm really looking forward. I don't want to be long-winded, so I'll call it quits now. Back to you, Madam GE.
General evaluator?
Did we lose Tricia?
I think
So
Oh,
sorry,
there you go.
I got caught up with my notes. Forgive me. Excellent evaluation there. Thank you so much. And I'll give more comments to that toward the end. Our second evaluator is Marianne Grady, and she's going to be evaluating speaker 2, who is David Carr.
Well, good evening, my friends, and good evening, David. Tonight, David's goal was to practice skills needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. Did he do it? I say yes. He started with an interesting title, Cease and Desist. Kind of makes you think and wonder. He was standing, which enabled us to see his stronger, more sweeping gestures. He began with a kerthunk and a side view, which we were all kind of, our curiosity was piqued at that point. He used humor. He said, like, when you said, thank goodness, I didn't forget something important like my phone. Another point of engagement was that he used colorful phraseology. It was inscrutable bureaucracy. Didn't want to know what was in the letter. Absolutely forbidden. Now, I thought this was one of my favorite speeches that I've seen you give, David. And I do, however, have 2 suggestions. The first one is to reorder the story about the first letter, because you were talking about getting the second letter when we didn't know what the first letter had said. So this way we would understand your angst by the time that came along. And the second thing I'd like to say is that I noticed that you were not making eye contact with the camera. Now, when you're giving a speech, especially the one like you gave tonight, you were talking about a letter. You could have held that letter in your hand and read from it, like, and used it like a prop, but and then just kind of made eye contact for the rest of the speech. But I think that would make it, you know, even if you had that letter in your hand, you could be waving it around in frustration when you're talking. But just a little change up to what you did tonight. Congratulations on a terrific speech. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. Another good evaluation. Thank you. Let's move on to our third evaluator, Andrew Byrne, who will be evaluating speaker 3, Joni Laidlaw.
Thank you very much. Joni, what a gem of a speech. I hope you enjoyed giving it as much as I enjoyed receiving it. You had many elements that were exceptional. But first, let me step back. One of the most important things that we learn in our journey is that the most important person or group of people that you have to consider is your audience. The audience is king. The audience is the most important focus for your speech. Who is in the audience? What do you want them to get? Your speech was an important one for this audience. How many people in the audience really appreciates the 5, 55, 7, 38 rule? The 7, 55, 38 rule. Many of you may be scratching your head. What's that? That's the messaging impact that you have. 55% is from gesturing, including your face. If your face is happy, you convey that. 38% is how you deliver your words, your pacing, your pitch. And 7% is the actual words that you're using. So the 7-55-38 rule is important incorporating. Now your speech was focused on effective body movement. And for this, you stood up. But it didn't prevent you from focusing on those 4 main points. What does the audience need? What is the call to action? And using your voice as an instrument with pace, pausing, tone, and dynamic range for your voice. But you did not forget to leave out the message, another critical element in the 4 elements that you had to include in this speech. And the message was about the importance of effective body movement, of gesturing, of having your face know that you're happy, and sharing that with direct looking at your audience and focusing on that camera as you deliver your message. You did all of those things well. You had an important message, you had a good pacing, and it was fun. We enjoyed being with you as we listened to your speech. We enjoyed the information you shared with us, leaving us with the impression that we want more. We want to see Joni more. We want to see your enthusiasm more. It was contagious, and we enjoyed being in the room listening to all the important things that you were sharing with us. We can't wait to hear more. Did you have anything that I could recommend that improve? Perhaps you could have used slides appropriately or props appropriately, but you had good handling of your camera, good facial contact, good integration with the audience, and letting people know that you had a message that was important to deliver. Back to you.
Great evaluation. We're going to have some really good feedback with our evaluators. So lots of good choices here. Our next evaluator is Adrienne Williams, and she will be evaluator for evaluating speaker for Graham Cairns.
Distinguished Toastmaster Graham, I love to hear you speak. It's something about your radio voice that draws us in. I paid attention to the audience too. Everyone was engaged. We were all trying to figure out how to get a free cruise. And so that put so much value in your speech. People were listening. And I love how you actually didn't give the actual information to the very end, because they were engaged in all the different opportunities that you talked about with cruising and leveraging our speaking skills and exchange that for value. That was something I never thought about while I've been on cruises, cruising around. I actually looked up this photo and I saw speakers on a cruise. And I said, you know what? I have actually been one of those people who sat in the lecture. I never thought about that the people were cruising for free and that's something that would have been available to me. So that was something that was great. This particular speech, of course, was about researching different methods and presenting a well-organized speech. Some of the things that I would have liked to have seen or heard more about is the different types of speakers that they allow. One of the websites that you gave us listed some criteria. They need destination people, special interests, art instructors, bridge instructors, religious service leaders, and at the very bottom, it said gentleman host. I was like, gentleman host? And then they define what that is for distinguished and a whole program for that. And I was like, wow, that is pretty interesting. So it would have been interesting to have just more facts on the different types, how broad this thing is, some of the subjects that they do, including the different types of statistics. How many spots do these cruises allow per year? How realistic is this if we apply for it that we can get it? And also, how competitive is this space in the market of all the speakers that we have in Toastmasters, or even how many slots per year? But you did a great job. You engaged the audience. You gave us a call of action about different cruises, the locations, the cities, destinations, and how to bring value to cruise lines that can benefit us later. So I appreciate you educating us on this topic of cruising for a fee, because we're all speakers in this group. And most of us have been on a cruise, but we definitely paid more than $700 or $800. So this is something we will all aspire to do in our future. And if people didn't like cruising, it doesn't matter. They could share it with someone else. So I appreciate your call to action by putting the links of the information in the chat, because I definitely looked it up and it was something that was enlightening to me. So thank you for sharing. You did a great job on this speech, and we look forward to more challenges for us speakers in Toastmasters so we can go to the next level. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Awesome job, awesome job. Onward, we're going to evaluator 5, Lewis Brown, and he's going to evaluate speaker 5, Maggie Liu.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Oh my goodness, going last. It's almost like in a contest, all of these incredible evaluations. Oh, I hope I can do just as well. Anyway, Maggie, wonderful project. Obviously, this is not a typical speech in a traditional sense with an opening, a body, a conclusion, a call to action, etc. Allow me for a second to just read quickly some of the notes in the project evaluation form to give out some context to the other members of the club. The member designed interview questions for the interviewer that are specific to Maggie's skills, abilities, and any other content that she wants to practice. Though the member designed the questions, he or she does not know exactly which questions will be asked. Look for poise, concise answers to questions, and the ability to recover from ineffective answers. So with that said, I'm going to evaluate you in terms of those specific objectives. What I really liked about your presentation was the fact that you did give us a little bit of information up front, what this is going to be all about. We had a pretty good sense from the description on the online agenda, but it's great for you to give us that you gave us a little bit more context so that we know really where it's going to go. And it's a live demo. That's also what I like about projects like this, is it's a way for you to practice as well as a way for us to learn more about some of the ideas on how to go about doing these particular things. Like you gave us some great ideas from your practicing. So it helps you and it helps us as well. You appeared very confident and well prepared. I guess that's in a way expected given how the objectives themselves, meaning you prepared the questions in advance. So again, even though we didn't know which ones David would answer, you had your answers more or less kind of prepared up front. However, that is always a great thing for an interviewee to do, is to kind of expect what questions may be asked and then prepared ahead of time. You certainly were well prepared in this for this particular project. Here are a couple of things I do suggest changing merely based on my observations of your speech. So it's really how it affected me. In the beginning, there was a little bit of, I'll say chaos. Chaos may be a very strong word, but I sensed that David wasn't sure if he would actually be your interviewer or not. I don't know if that was part of the role play or not, but I sensed a bit of a snafu. Maybe a little bit of more practice up front. And quite frankly, also jump right into it. I think you also said, like, David, are you ready? Or a little bit of like setup kind of dialogue. And I was expecting you to really go in just like somebody on a stage. Oh, okay, here we go, right into it. You also mentioned something about what Rosena mentioned. I thought, oh, you just broke character. Who's Rosena? This is your interview. This isn't about Rosena. Now, in terms of one of the objectives being succinct answers, I think David asked 2 questions, and the first one for me, was a very long answer. Certainly be succinct in terms of how you're going to present the information with your skills, et cetera. Now, with that said, here's a couple of ways you might want to stretch yourself is rather than just list a laundry list of examples of your skills, et cetera, share some stories about your work and accomplishments. When I was a team leader at company X, I increased productivity by Y%, something like that. Also, maybe you can ask David to ask a question that you didn't prepare for him. That way, really kind of catch you off guard. I see that red light's on. Boy, it's weird it came up so quickly for me, so it doesn't give me a chance to practice my radio voice. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. And Lou, you're not the last evaluator. We have one more. We have evaluator 6, who I have as Carl Walsh. He will be evaluating speaker 6, Andriy Smolenko.
Yes, that's right. I am the last one. And I do want to thank Lou for giving me warm fuzzies about going last. Thank you for that, Lou. Now, on to Andriy, who did give me lots of warm fuzzies about what he did. He was succinct. He was direct, not long-winded at all, which I really appreciated. I've listened to so many of these report on a project speeches, and usually it's painful. Not a bit with Andriy, because and let me just talk a little bit of why I thought this was exceptional, really. There was clarity. All the language was accessible to everyone. There was no jargon. We understood exactly what he was talking about at all times. He was to the point, And he was comprehensive, given the time limits that he had. I think he could have actually gone on for another 10 minutes and given us a really excellent report. And by the way, just on a technical note, great use of Prezi. Well done, Andriy, there. Now, one of the things that I would think about that might perhaps enhance it, particularly since the project is not yet complete and you have run into some pretty serious barriers, I think a little humor to take the sting out of it. Make fun of your problems, even though they are problems. And I'd like to hear in particular on the political issues that you were talking about with Russia and China. Where did you find that out? How did you find that out? How was it explained to you? I understand it from kind of a general meaning of it. I get it, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because that's really interesting. I think there's some real meat in there that would tell us a lot, not just about your project, but about us and about our world. The speech was beautifully organized. Your transitions from one subject to the next made total sense and flowed beautifully. Really, truly, it worked so well. And your conclusion that you're going to keep at it and you're going to keep trying, I love it. I think you should. I want to hear more about it. And I wish you all the luck in the world on it, because I think it would be a wonderful thing to, just as a little challenge, find out just how bad those barriers are. Would Russian clubs have a problem? Would Chinese clubs have a problem? Truly, I suspect not so much the Chinese clubs. I understand the Russian clubs, but maybe they're open to it. So do that for a little challenge, and that might be fun. Back to you, Tricia.
All right, we had some wonderful evaluations of the speakers tonight, 6 of them for our speech-a-thon. If we could please have the timers report in the chat, and if you scroll up, when we started the evaluation process, I actually listed each evaluator and who they were evaluating as a speaker to be helpful. So if you could please send your vote once we get the times. Let's see. Okay. All right, we're still waiting for the timer. Sorry, just a second. Here we go. Okay, we have the timer. And did everybody qualify?
Not Lou.
Sarah?
Yeah, money. Everybody qualified. We had one person who was Lou was 3 minutes, 41 seconds.
All right. So does Lou qualify with time? They were all great evaluations. No. Okay. Thank you. So please send your vote. We're doing it through chat to the vote counter, Carolina. If you could do that quickly, that would be great. Does anybody have any questions on that before I get to the rest of our evaluation here? And then we will be getting results at the end. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is my evaluation of our evaluators as well, if I can continue with that. Does everybody have their vote in for the evaluator? Awesome, awesome. Okay. I wanted to back up and just make some comments about everything that we've had with the meeting, because I'm the general evaluator, so I get to talk about the whole meeting as well as the evaluators. So I don't want to repeat anything that was said with the speeches or the evaluations of the speeches, so I'm going to be careful with that. We had a great introduction topic that was prior to our speakers and presentations. What makes us laugh? What a great introduction and start of the meeting. So it set the tone, the stage, the mood. Everybody was smiling. So it was wonderful to see that. And throughout the whole entire meeting, everybody centered in their screen. So I have to say that too. Top, bottom, sides, wonderful backgrounds. I made a note of some really good backgrounds in parts of my notes. And I wanted to also just welcome Sunny Fridge again. She's become a new member with us. That took place also. Carolina gave us a great start as Sergeant of Arms to the meeting. Wonderful explanation of the way the meeting is conducted and the expectations. It went to Andrew Byrne, our club president. He talked about our events and our achievements. We have 21 participants in this meeting, as I stated before. Our Toastmaster of the day, Kim Ling, she's always on fire and just wonderful to listen to. Great tone, great presentation, and the way that she engages everyone and all the transitions. The tip of the day with Taru, very interesting topic and very current topic with Queen Elizabeth. That's in the news, right? Who's not aware of that one? Amazing person who ruled for, I think, 70 years. Amazing. And he gave us a lot of history information on that. So who didn't learn something there? That was very inspirational. So thank you for that. With the speakers, I'll go to the evaluators, and I'm going to start with Jim Barber. I just want, the way that I put my notes, I listed some highlights of their evaluations, because those are takeaways to me. So we can all learn something on how we can do our speeches better just by the evaluations that we heard tonight. So Jim Barber evaluated Rosena. Duncanson talked about her appearance. That's something to say. How many of us, me, I wear something comfortable to our meetings. It's the end of the day. Maybe, in the past, I work remotely, so I can pretty much dress comfortably every day, all day long. Some people have to commute, go to work and dress professionally all day, so they're going to wear something comfortable in the evenings, right? So I think everybody does a good job with the way they dress and their presentation and their hairstyles and the glasses and the way that they present. I didn't see any glares. Just that one evaluation of someone who had a glare in their glasses, but everybody that I see that has glasses, and hopefully me included, there wasn't a lot of glare throughout this meeting. So I thought that was good. Marianne evaluated David Carr and talked about how he used humor and phrases to engage audience. How many of us do that? And that tied in with the original topic going into the whole meeting, which is awesome.
we should try and wrap up because we're a bit over time. I think our vote counter does have results.
All right. Yep. Let's go to the results and the vote counter. We got the time, and let's give some results of who actually won the best. Do we have the best speaker?
I have the winners.
Okay.
If you want me to announce the winners.
Yes. And can you please put them in the chat box? Thank you.
Best evaluator, Jim Barber. And best speaker, Andriy and Smolenko. Congratulations to the speakers.
Congratulations. Awesome. All right, let's do some brief reports of our supporting roles. And for tonight, that would be the watcher, chat monitor. Do we have a grammarian? No grammarian. Counter, no vote counter. So pretty much the vote counter. Is that all we have for the extra jobs?
Yeah, really, you should just throw it to
the vote counter.
Our president.
Okay, let's go back to our president. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the wonderful job that you did today, Trish, and to all the speakers. These speakathons have a great opportunity to get more people to speak and move on their journey. The one thing I do want to say at this moment is I want to bring up Muriel Shabazz, who was a guest for our meeting, and ask her to address the club as to who she is, what club she's coming from, and what she thought of our club and what differences she experienced.
Wow. Well, good evening, online presenters, and to the other guests here. It is my joy and my delight to be here. I am just having a great time. I am part of several Toastmasters in District 1, and one of the clubs I'm a part of is Masters of Evaluation. It was chartered last year by Vicky Trabash. And so I'm always interested in up-leveling my evaluation skills. So when I saw this ad for online presenters several weeks ago, actually, I said, well, let me see if I can hop on, even though I was a little tardy. So my apologies for being a little late. So I thought their meeting was well organized. I feel like I'm getting ready to give an evaluation, which I'm not going to do. But to make it really succinct, I had a great time and I will return.
Well, as David pointed out, it's Eastern Time, 9:17. We want to officially end the meeting, but end the recording, but keep the meeting line open for those